Olivia Blackwood stood before the board of directors, her silk navy suit a stark contrast to the sterile white walls of the Blackwood Biotech conference room. Her voice never wavered as she presented the groundbreaking Heart Shield device, technology that could save thousands of children born with congenital heart defects. Behind her confident exterior, her heart raced. This wasn't just another product launch. This was her legacy. 50 blocks away, in a dimly lit attorney's office that smelled of leather and old paper, Thomas Reynolds stared at the contract before him. His calloused mechanic's hands trembled as he gripped the pen. 5 years of hiding, of starting over, of protecting his son, all coming to this moment of surrender. The contract promised Noah a chance to live, but at what cost? Thomas signed his name, the ink bleeding slightly where his hand had hesitated. Sometimes life forces us to sign contracts whose consequences we cannot foresee until it's too late. Morning light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows on the 50th floor of the Blackwood Tower in Manhattan. Olivia watched the city awaken beneath her, tiny figures rushing through the concrete maze, each with their own story, their own struggles. None of them knew how their lives might depend on the decisions made in this glass tower. Her office was a testament to success. Minimalist furniture in cool grays, a wall of awards, and a single photo. Olivia shaking hands with the Surgeon General after receiving recognition for innovations in medical technology. No family photos, no personal touches, just achievement. Behind her desk sat a framed picture of herself with Dr. Eleanor Parker, her mentor and co-founder of Blackwood Biotech. The older woman's steady guidance had helped transform Olivia from an ambitious researcher into the CEO of a company poised to revolutionize pediatric cardiac care. But lately, Eleanor had been questioning whether their rapid growth was compromising their original mission. Her phone buzzed. Ethan Mitchell's name flashed across the screen. Her CFO, her ex-fiancé. Complicated. Our lead researcher quit. Ethan's voice carried the familiar edge of controlled panic. Pressure got to him. Said he couldn't guarantee the results we need before the IPO deadline. Olivia closed her eyes, processing this blow. Their IPO was scheduled in 4 months. HeartShield was meant to be their flagship product. Without it, investors would flee. There is one option, Ethan continued, his voice dropping lower. Thomas Reynolds? Olivia's breath caught. A name from the past. A ghost. The Thomas Reynolds? She tried to keep her voice neutral. He disappeared 5 years ago. My sources say he's working as a mechanic in Brooklyn, living under the radar. Why would a brilliant medical engineer be fixing cars instead of saving lives? Olivia asked, already knowing there was always more to every story. That's the million-dollar question, Ethan replied, but we're running out of options. After the call ended, Olivia stood motionless, staring at the Manhattan skyline. Thomas Reynolds, the same man whose research paper had inspired her career path. The same man who vanished at the height of his career, leaving behind whispers of scandal and shame. She picked up the phone again, calling Dr. Parker. Eleanor, what do you know about Thomas Reynolds' time at Medicor? Brilliant mind. Ethical to a fault, Eleanor replied without hesitation. The official story was data falsification, but there were rumors he discovered safety issues the company wanted buried. And you believe the rumors? I've been watching his patent applications for years, made through shell companies, but unmistakably his work. The man never stopped trying to make that device safer. That evening, Olivia's penthouse apartment echoed with emptiness. She ate a meticulously prepared meal alone, surrounded by expensive art that meant nothing to her. Success had given her everything except what mattered. As she sipped her wine, she wondered if Thomas Reynolds had found what she was missing. Grease stained Thomas's forearms as he slid out from under the vintage Mustang. The garage in Brooklyn had become his sanctuary, a place where problems had clear solutions, where mistakes could be fixed with the right tools and enough patience. Mr. Carter, Your timing belt's replaced. Should be good for another 60,000 miles. He wiped his hands on a rag, the ritual familiar after 5 years in this new life. Once, his hands had designed medical devices that saved lives. Now they fixed carburetors and replaced brake pads. The irony wasn't lost on him. His watch beeped, time to pick up Noah from school. Thomas quickly cleaned up and changed his shirt before driving the 3 blocks to PS 118. Noah stood on the steps, smaller than the other 9-year-olds, his backpack almost as big as he was. "Dad!" The boy's face lit up, the same smile that had kept Thomas going through the darkest days after Emma's death. They walked hand in hand to their apartment, a small 2-bedroom walk-up in a neighborhood that wasn't dangerous but wasn't thriving either. Thomas prepared a simple dinner of pasta and vegetables, while Noah talked about his day, his science project, the book he was reading. This humble life was nothing like the prestigious career Thomas had abandoned, but it contained something his old life had lacked: peace, or at least it had, until Noah collapsed during recess last week. "Dad?" Noah's voice grew suddenly faint, his small hand clutched at his chest. "It hurts again." The pasta forgotten, Thomas gathered his son into his arms, feeling the irregular flutter of his heart through his thin t-shirt. This was the 3rd episode this week. Each time the recovery took longer. The emergency room was blindingly bright after their nighttime rush through the city. Dr. Chen's face remained professionally composed as she delivered the news that shattered Thomas's world. "Noah's heart condition has worsened significantly. He needs surgery. Advanced surgery." She hesitated. "Mr. Reynolds, the procedure Noah needs involves technology that's still in clinical trials. The heart shield device from Blackwood Biotech." The name hit Thomas like a physical blow. Blackwood Biotech, the company formed by former colleagues after the scandal that destroyed his career. "The waiting list for the trial is long," Dr. Chen continued, her voice softening, "and without insurance coverage for experimental procedures." She didn't need to finish. Thomas understood the impossible math. Noah's life had a price tag, and it was far beyond what a mechanic could pay. That night, as Noah slept in the hospital bed, monitors beeping steadily beside him, Thomas made a decision. 5 years of hiding, of protecting Noah from the fallout of his past. All of it would be sacrificed if it meant his son would live. The lobby of Blackwood Tower gleamed with steel and privilege. Thomas felt conspicuously out of place in his clean but worn jacket, clutching a folder containing Noah's medical records and his own research. Work he'd continued in secret on his kitchen table after midnight shifts at the garage. "Sir, you need an appointment." The security guard blocked his path with practiced efficiency. "Please, it's about the heart shield trials, my son." "Everyone has a story, sir. You need to go through proper channels." Thomas felt desperation rising in his chest. Proper channels meant forms and waiting lists, things Noah didn't have time for. He darted around the guard, heading toward the elevators. In his haste, he collided with a woman stepping out, sending her coffee cascading down her cream-colored blouse. "I'm so sorry," Thomas began, then froze as he looked into her face. Recognition flashed in her eyes too, but differently. She knew him. He was just seeing a stranger, beautiful, poised, and now coffee-stained and furious. "Do you have any idea?" she began, then paused, studying his face. "What's your name?" "Thomas Reynolds." "Look, I need to speak with someone about the heart shield clinical trials. My son is dying." The woman's expression shifted, professional mask sliding back into place. "I'm Olivia Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Biotech." Thomas felt the world tilt beneath him. Blackwood. The company name wasn't a coincidence. "5 minutes," she said after a pause. "You have 5 minutes to explain why I shouldn't have security escort you out." In the private elevator to the 50th floor, Thomas scrambled to organize his thoughts. 5 minutes to convince this woman to save Noah's life. Olivia's office was exactly what Thomas would have expected. Sleek, impersonal, a temple to corporate achievement. She gestured to a chair across from her desk as she dabbed at the coffee stain. "My son Noah has hypoplastic left heart syndrome," Thomas began, sliding the medical file across the desk. "He needs the Heart Shield device, but we can't afford the private trial, and the waiting list for the public trial is too long. He doesn't have that kind of time." Olivia opened the file, scanning the documents with practiced efficiency. "These are advanced cardiac assessments. How did you get these?" Thomas hesitated, then decided truth was his only option. "I analyzed the standard test myself. I have some background in cardiac medicine." Olivia's eyebrow raised. "Some background? Ms. Blackwood, I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here about my son." "That's where you're wrong, Dr. Reynolds." She emphasized his former title. "You disappeared 5 years ago after publishing groundbreaking research on cardiac assistance devices. Research that eventually led to the development of Heart Shield. And now you appear in my lobby, a mechanic with advanced medical knowledge, asking for my help." Thomas felt the blood drain from his face. She knew exactly who he was. "You were a research intern," he realized aloud, "in Dr. Kessler's lab at Johns Hopkins." "I remember now." Olivia nodded, her expression unreadable. "Your work changed my life. I founded this company based on principles I learned from your research papers." She paused. "And then you vanished after accusations that you falsified safety data." "I didn't falsify anything," Thomas said, his voice low and intense. "I discovered the safety issues and reported them. The company buried my findings because a recall would have cost billions." Their eyes locked across the desk. A moment of connection, of evaluation. Then Olivia made a decision that would change everything. "I have a proposition, Dr. Reynolds. We need a lead researcher to complete the Heart Shield trials before our IPO. You need your son in that trial immediately." She slid a contract across the desk. "Join Blackwood Biotech. Finish what you started. In return, Noah gets priority placement in the trial." Thomas stared at the document. Another contract. Another bargain for his son's life. "I left that world for a reason. And now you have a reason to come back." Olivia's voice softened slightly. "Sometimes the universe has a strange way of bringing us full circle." 24 hours later, after a sleepless night watching Noah's chest rise and fall in his hospital bed, Thomas signed the contract that would either save them both or destroy what little he had rebuilt. The research lab at Blackwood Biotech pulsed with activity, white-coated scientists moving between workstations, the soft whir of advanced equipment, the unmistakable energy of innovation. For Thomas, walking through those doors was like stepping into a past life. His new team watched him with barely concealed skepticism. To them, he was either a has-been or a fraud, brought in through some mysterious connection with the CEO. "Dr. Reynolds, welcome back to the world of the living." Dr. Marcus Webb, the current team leader, offered a handshake that was just slightly too firm. "We've made significant advances with Heart Shield since your early work in the field." The condescension was clear. Thomas chose to ignore it, focusing instead on the prototype displayed on the center table. "May I?" he asked, already reaching for the device. The room fell silent as Thomas examined the Heart Shield, turning it in his hands, studying the mechanisms, his experienced eyes catching details others might miss. He placed it back on the table and looked directly at Dr. Webb. "The flow regulator is flawed," Thomas said quietly. "Under sustained pressure, these seals will fail within 6 months, possibly sooner in pediatric patients with rapid growth." The silence deepened. Dr. Webb's face flushed. "That's impossible. We've tested." "You tested under stable conditions. Children's bodies change. The device needs to adapt." Thomas pulled a notebook from his bag, flipping to a page of handwritten calculations and sketches. "This modification would solve the problem. I've been working on it for 3 years." Later that day, Olivia received the report. Thomas Reynolds had identified a critical flaw that the entire research team had missed, a flaw that could have caused catastrophic failures in young patients. Noah Reynolds had been admitted to the clinical trial program with priority status, and Ethan Mitchell was furious. You can't just insert a disgraced scientist into our flagship project 4 months before IPO. Ethan fumed in Olivia's office, pacing like a caged animal. Do you know what he did at Medicore? The scandal almost tanked the company. I know Medicore buried his safety concerns and then scapegoated him when patients died, Olivia replied calmly. Just like I know you're more concerned about our stock price than patient outcomes. Dr. Eleanor Parker entered, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, her presence immediately commanding respect. I've reviewed Thomas's findings. He's right about the flow regulator. Eleanor, not you too, Ethan groaned. I've been tracking his patent applications for years, Eleanor continued, ignoring Ethan's protest. He never stopped improving the technology, even without institutional support. That's dedication, not deception. Ethan stopped pacing. You don't know what he's capable of. You don't know why he really disappeared. His words hung in the air between them, a warning Olivia chose to ignore. This is where you work? Noah's eyes were wide as saucers as he took in the soaring atrium of Blackwood Tower. It's like a spaceship, Thomas smiled, watching his son's wonder. Today was Bring Your Child to Work Day, an opportunity for Noah to see the world his father had rejoined, and for the staff to see the very human reason behind Thomas's return. Dr. Reynolds! Olivia approached them, dressed impeccably in a burgundy suit that somehow made her seem both powerful and approachable. You must be Noah. I've heard so much about you. Noah studied her with the frank curiosity of childhood. You're really pretty. Are you Dad's boss? Olivia laughed, a genuine sound that Thomas realized he hadn't heard from her before. I suppose I am, technically, though your dad is teaching us as much as we're teaching him. As Olivia led them on a tour, Thomas noticed how naturally she connected with Noah, answering his questions thoughtfully, adjusting her explanations to his level without talking down to him. This was a side of Olivia Blackwood that corporate America never saw. In the company cafeteria, while Thomas stepped away to get drinks, Noah asked Olivia a question that caught her off guard. Are you lonely? You look lonely sometimes. Olivia blinked, momentarily speechless. What makes you say that? Dad looks like that too sometimes, when he thinks I'm not watching. Noah traced patterns on the table with his finger. He says success isn't making lots of money. It's doing something important for other people. Are you successful? When Thomas returned, he found Olivia engaged in deep conversation with his son about butterflies and transformation, her expression more open and genuine than he'd ever seen. Later that evening, with Noah safely at home with a babysitter, Thomas worked late in the lab, losing track of time as he refined the heart shield modifications. A soft knock on the door startled him. Olivia stood in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. I thought you might need this. Thank you. Thomas accepted the cup, noticing she changed into jeans and a simple sweater, a stark contrast to her usual corporate armor. I wanted to see how the modifications are coming along, she said, but her eyes were drawn to the wall behind his workstation. Thomas had pinned dozens of hand-drawn designs, calculations, and notes. Years of work done at his kitchen table, on lunch breaks, whenever he could steal a moment. You never stopped, Olivia said softly. All those years fixing cars. I couldn't. Thomas gestured to the wall of research. Not when I knew children were dying from a problem I could solve. Olivia stepped closer, examining the intricate drawings. You did all this without a lab, without funding, without recognition. I did it for Noah and for Emma. The name slipped out before Thomas could catch it. Emma? Thomas rarely spoke of his late wife, but something about Olivia's presence, her genuine interest, broke through his carefully maintained barriers. My wife, she died 5 years ago. Heart failure caused by a defective medical device, the same device I warned Medicor about. Thomas's voice remained steady, but his hands trembled slightly. I was their director of cardiac innovation. When I discovered fatal flaws in our flagship device, I documented everything and went through proper channels. He paused, the memories flooding back. The CEO himself assured me they would address it. 2 weeks later, they announced record profits and expansion plans. No recall, no fixes. Then patients started dying, Emma among them. What happened? I went public with my findings. Medicor's legal team came after me hard. They claimed I'd falsified data, that I was bitter over being passed over for promotion. They destroyed my credibility, made it impossible for me to work in the field. With Emma gone and a 3-year-old to raise alone, I disappeared. Started over. Olivia's expression shifted from shock to understanding to something deeper, a profound recognition. Your research paper on cardiac support systems was why I started this company, she admitted. When the scandal broke, I didn't believe the accusations against you. Eleanor and I have spent 3 years trying to find you. Their eyes met across the lab table, two people whose lives had been on converging paths without their knowledge. I think, Olivia said carefully, that some contracts are written long before we sign them. As the Heart Shield trial progressed, Noah showed remarkable improvement. His color returned, his energy increased, and for the first time in his young life, he could run without his heart protesting. Thomas watched his son playing in the hospital courtyard, overwhelmed by emotions he couldn't name. He's thriving, Olivia said, joining Thomas on the bench. Over the past weeks, she had become a regular visitor in Noah's recovery journey. The latest scans show perfect integration with the device. I never dared hope for this, Thomas admitted. For years, I've been preparing for the worst. Olivia's hand found his, a brief touch of connection. Sometimes we're so focused on preparing for storms that we forget to notice when the sun comes out. Their growing closeness hadn't gone unnoticed. Ethan Mitchell watched with calculating eyes as the brilliant researcher and the CEO developed a bond that transcended professional collaboration. He saw how Olivia began to question the aggressive timeline for the IPO, prioritizing additional safety testing over investor demands. In the boardroom, tensions mounted. These additional tests will push us past the IPO date, Ethan argued, frustration evident in his clipped tones. The investors are getting nervous. I won't rush a product that children's lives depend on, Olivia countered. Thomas identified 3 more refinements that will make Heart Shield safer and more effective. Dr. Eleanor Parker nodded her agreement. We founded this company to prioritize patients over profits, Ethan. Or have you forgotten? You're betting the entire company on a man who failed once before, Ethan warned, his voice dropping ominously. A man with every reason to sabotage a medical technology company after what happened to his wife. Olivia's gaze hardened. That's enough, Ethan. But the seeds of doubt had been planted in the board members' minds. After the meeting, Dr. Parker approached Olivia with concern. Olivia, I've supported your decisions from the beginning, but Ethan raises valid concerns. Are you certain your judgment isn't clouded by personal feelings? Eleanor, you taught me to trust data above all else, Olivia replied. The data supports Thomas's recommendations. That evening, Olivia found herself driving to Brooklyn, to the modest apartment building where Thomas and Noah lived. She needed to see for herself, to understand the man beyond the brilliant researcher who was revolutionizing her company's flagship product. Noah answered the door, delighted by the unexpected visitor. Dad's in his thinking room, he explained, leading her down a short hallway. The thinking room was barely larger than a closet, once a pantry, now converted into a makeshift laboratory. The walls were covered with formulas and designs. A small desk held a microscope and basic tools. This was where Thomas had continued his life-saving work in secret for 5 years. Olivia, Thomas looked up, surprised. Is everything all right? The board is questioning your modifications, she said directly. Ethan is pushing back hard. Thomas nodded slowly. I expected that. He's prioritizing the IPO timeline. He suggested you might have reasons to sabotage Blackwood. A flash of pain crossed Thomas's features. And what do you believe? I believe in the work I've seen you do, Olivia said simply. I believe in the man who continued his research on a mechanic's salary in a converted pantry because children's lives were at stake. Later that night, after Noah had gone to bed, they sat at Thomas's kitchen table, drinking tea and talking. Not about HeartShield or the IPO, but about their lives, their dreams, the path that had led them to this unexpected intersection. I used to think success meant proving everyone wrong, Olivia confessed. Building a billion-dollar company to show I wasn't just a bright-eyed intern with unrealistic ideals. And now, Thomas asked, now I'm not sure anymore. Her fingers traced the rim of her mug. Watching you with Noah, seeing how you measure success, it's changing something in me. The moment was interrupted by Olivia's phone. Emergency at the lab. Data inconsistencies in the HeartShield trials. The laboratory was in chaos when they arrived. Dr. Webb was frantically reviewing results, his face pale. The latest patient data shows irregular functioning in 3 devices, he explained, including Noah's. Thomas felt his world tilting. That's impossible. I checked Noah's device myself yesterday. Olivia moved to the computer, scanning the reports. Show me the raw data. Hours later, bleary-eyed from reviewing endless streams of numbers, Thomas spotted the discrepancy. These baseline measurements have been altered. Compare them to the original files. Olivia pulled up the secure server records. You're right. Someone manually adjusted the data to show device failures that don't exist. Who would do that? And why? Dr. Webb asked. The answer came at dawn when Dr. Parker arrived with a security team. A forensic IT analysis had traced the data alterations to Ethan Mitchell's access credentials. He's been falsifying data for months, Dr. Parker explained, not just making failures appear, but hiding real problems too, all to keep the IPO on schedule. An emergency board meeting was called. Ethan arrived confident, unaware that his scheme had been discovered. His facade crumbled when presented with the evidence. You don't understand what's at stake, he insisted. Delays cost money. Investors get nervous. Competitors catch up. Children could have died, Olivia's voice was ice, including Noah Reynolds. Ethan's dismissal was immediate and unanimous, but the damage assessment revealed a more urgent problem. The IPO prospectus contained falsified data. They would need to withdraw it and resubmit, a process that would take months and potentially tank the company's valuation. More critically, Noah's HeartShield device, along with those of 7 other children, needed immediate recalibration to address issues Ethan had concealed. I'll need to adjust each device individually, Thomas explained to the emergency medical team. Starting with Noah's, Dr. Parker placed a hand on his shoulder. Thomas, you can't perform a medical procedure on your own son. Hospital regulations. I'm the only one who fully understands the needed modifications, Thomas interrupted. Every minute we wait puts him at greater risk. Olivia stepped forward. I'll take responsibility. Full corporate liability. These children can't wait for bureaucracy. Through the night, Thomas worked tirelessly, moving from one young patient to another, making the delicate adjustments to each HeartShield device while anxious parents watched. Olivia stayed by his side, handling documentation, offering support, witnessing firsthand the impact of their work on real lives. Noah was last. The boy lay sleeping, trusting completely in his father's hands. Thomas felt the weight of that trust as he made the final adjustments. Olivia watching silently from the corner of the room. It's done, Thomas finally said, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. All 8 devices recalibrated. They should function perfectly now. Olivia crossed the room and did something completely unexpected. She wrapped her arms around him, holding him as the adrenaline faded and emotional exhaustion took its place. "You saved them," she whispered. "You saved them all." 3 months later, Blackwood Biotech's revised IPO exceeded all expectations. The company's transparent handling of the data falsification scandal and their prioritization of patient safety over profits had earned them unprecedented trust from both the medical community and investors. Thomas, now officially the Director of Research and Development, oversaw the expanded Heart Shield program. The device was approved for general use, and a charitable foundation was established to ensure children without financial resources could receive the life-saving technology. In Olivia's office, the formerly austere space had transformed. Alongside her professional awards now stood framed children's artwork, colorful hearts drawn by the first recipients of Heart Shield, and one photograph of Noah, Thomas, and Olivia at the hospital celebration when the final trial results were announced. The board approved the foundation funding, Olivia announced as Thomas entered, full scholarships for young researchers focused on pediatric medical devices named after Emma. Thomas stopped, overcome by emotion. She would have loved that, using her name to create something that helps children. Noah suggested it, actually. Olivia smiled. He said his mom and dad both tried to fix broken hearts, just in different ways. Outside the window, spring had transformed New York. The city that had once seemed cold and impersonal to Olivia now pulsed with stories she could see. Parents and children, struggles and triumphs. Lives interconnected in ways both visible and invisible. "I signed that contract to save my son," Thomas said, moving to stand beside her at the window. "I never expected it would save me too. Bring me back to the work I was meant to do. And I never expected that finding you would change how I define success." Olivia turned to face him. "I built a company that saves lives, but I forgot how to live one myself." 1 year later, on a perfect autumn day, Thomas, Olivia, and Noah picnicked in Central Park. Noah, healthy and energetic, kicked a soccer ball with newfound freedom, his heart strong and steady. "He has your determination," Olivia observed, watching the boy refuse to give up on a particularly tricky kick. "And your strategic thinking," Thomas countered with a smile. "He's been negotiating for a puppy with corporate-level tactics." They had found a balance, Thomas continuing his research while maintaining reasonable hours. Olivia learning that leadership didn't require constant presence in the office. Together, they had built something neither could have created alone, a company that valued ethics over profit, innovation over expedience, and most importantly, a family formed not by blood, but by choice. As the afternoon light turned golden, Thomas reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Not elegant stationery, but laboratory notepaper covered with his familiar handwriting. "What's this?" Olivia asked as he handed it to her. "A new contract," Thomas replied softly. "Different terms this time." Olivia unfolded the paper to find not legal language, but a proposal, heartfelt words about second chances, found family and futures built together. At the bottom was a simple line for her signature. Before she could respond, Noah appeared, breathless from running, holding a small velvet box. "Dad said I get to deliver this part," the boy announced importantly, "because I picked you for our family way before he did." Olivia's hands trembled as she opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. Her eyes met Thomas's, seeing in them the same certainty she felt in her heart. "I believe," she said, her voice steady as she signed her name on the contract, "that this is one agreement I'll never regret signing." Noah cheered as Thomas slipped the ring onto Olivia's finger. Above them, autumn leaves danced in the breeze, nature's quiet celebration of a contract not made by lawyers or corporations, but by fate itself, bringing together two broken hearts that, together, had learned to beat in perfect rhythm.